All right. Well, James, could you get us started?
That I can. Okay. So this is a new year for Selena in 2024. It's a new year for all of us. But one of the things that we want to focus on this new year is going to be a New Year's resolution. I know many of us have personal New Year's resolutions, but this one is personal to the company, Selena USA, with the brand Tytan Professional. So, this is a start of many webinars to come. This will be something that Samuel and I will be talking and going through almost weekly. And so, I'd like to introduce Samuel Calishaw as our marketing director, and I am James DeVoli, the product manager. And our New Year's resolution for Selena USA is going to be no more floor squeaks and no more callbacks. So, we're going to jump into a little bit of what we mean by this. We'll first look at, what's kind of the agenda for today, and then we'll get started. So, Samuel, if you want to go through the agenda real quick.
Yes. Yeah. For the agenda for today's webinar, relatively straightforward. It won't be super long. We'll go through some of these statistics regarding callbacks. What are some of the top sources for callbacks for home builders? The walking through the cost of those callbacks and what doing rework would actually cost you and your organization. And then we'll look at an article we published called Why Does Wood Warp? This is part of the cause of these floor squeaks that we're talking about today. We'll look at an APA article, the Engineered Wood Association. We'll look at how you too can prevent floor squeaks. We'll answer some frequently asked questions, and then we'll do a giveaway of a free trial pack for our subfloor adhesive.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, so we are going to get started. We're going to look at some callback statistics. Samuel did a lot of the gathering on this, and I think you'll find it quite interesting. So we'll get started first with the callback statistics. Samuel, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so according to the Journal of Light Construction and Builder magazine, they list floor squeaks as the #2 most reported source of callbacks for home builders. So they quoted basically the Journal of Light Construction, which I include a screenshot of there. I encourage you to go find the article yourself. But that journal basically went and did some research. They interviewed contractors, engineers, consultants, home inspectors to see what the top callback sources were, and floor squeaks is #2. So you can see a quote. I include a quote here on the slide. So subflooring can be a big source of callbacks. This is a consultant guy that they're quoting here, Reisinger. So he also says that it's crucial to use a high quality polyurethane subfloor adhesive.
And I like, Samuel, I just want to point out, I like that he said high quality polyurethane subfloor adhesive, not just any subfloor adhesive, right? So I'll go ahead and put on the next little image you had here, part of the statistic. Yeah?
Yes, so this picture here is a screenshot from a news article. This is something they mentioned in this article. James and I went and found the video that is they quote in this article. They mention it. It was a ABC News research deal, that they did, journalism thing that they did. And so in that picture, basically there was this lady that had her home built, had terrible floor squeaks. Like she said, it was like music, but musical instruments or something, how loud it was. And so you can see they're actually having to tear up that subfloor and glue it down correctly. That was something mentioned in the video.
Yes, and so this just kind of gives an idea of how big it is of an annoyance from a consumer standpoint and how big it can cost someone from the building side. So I'm going to get into this next part and kind of go into what exactly does it cost us, as a manufacturer, as a home builder, what is it going to cost you when there's a floor squeak? And right off the bat, first we're going to talk about you have an original cost to the job. So you're already out there, you're building the house. Um, and as you're building the house, the framing crew's going through and everything. They get the second story put up, or if you're in the north, you have the first story going over top of the basement. On those I-beams or those joists, laying down the subfloor panels, getting them fastened in per spec, per building code. And if it's not done properly, this original cost of the job is going to significantly increase to what Samuel and I would almost think it could be unmeasurable how damaging this could be. But one of the first things that you can measure is going to be the cost to tear this down. The breakdown of the flooring system that's failed, that's causing these floor squeaks, that's your first cost. You're going to have to do the demo. So that's the first cost for a callback. That demo, it leads into other things. But the very beginning thing is if you're going to repair it and satisfy the customer, that demo is going to be the first cost to you. Next, you're looking at a potential of lost business. And it's not just lost business from this single customer, it's lost business to this customer's family, their relatives, their friends, anyone they post about on any kind of social media platform. And if it gets viral, I mean, at that point, your cost of lost business could be significant. Especially as a home builder, if you're a smaller home builder, this could be a very, very big cost in your brand and your recognition and just going forward with business on new jobs. Now, another part of that is you have to repair what you've done. So you did the demo work, you have some stained image in your customer's mind for potential loss of business in the future with them, their relatives, and whoever else it might be. Now you have to repair, and that repair is going to cost material and labor. And material and labor fluctuate. Material specifically fluctuates. And so if you built the house when material was inexpensive and now you're fixing it, you've got the material in a few months down the road and material prices have jumped through the roof, you're having to eat that. What once was going to be a profit on a job is now turned into an extreme loss in multiple ways. And last, you have the last cause of opportunities while doing this repair. You have the framing crew or the demo crew, whoever, going out and doing these repairs when they could have been focused on new business that are going to help you get money in your pocket. So now you've lost the opportunity for an extra house being built that day or an extra side job of flooring being replaced that day. This will cost your company forevermore. This is an ongoing cost at that point, because if you lose out on one piece that could have led to another opportunity, now you have what is called exponential loss. It can keep going at a rate you don't know. And so that's some of the ways that a cost of a callback can significantly hurt your company. your company's integrity, the brand, and overall just the business, the operations. And that is a wow factor, right, Samuel? I
Yep.
mean, yeah, these are things you can't go back and Samuel, what did you tell me? It's often and much better to just do the job the right the first time, right? What was
Yep.
that phrase you had?
Yeah, you're better off doing it right the first time. It's so much cheaper in the long run. And
Hmm.
some of these items that you've listed, James, are like, okay, so the original cost of the job, I can put a dollar value there. Maybe it's $5,000. Who knows? The cost to tear down, okay, maybe that's $2,000.
Hmm.
The cost of lost business, okay, now it's hard to put a dollar value to that, but it's a lot more than $5,000, certainly. And then the cost of all the lost opportunities, that it just starts to skyrocket and kind of exponentially grow as you proceed forward. And so that's what we're talking about today, is just how do we prevent this, from happening.
Right. It's like a snowball effect.
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, they all lead into the next problem, the next. It's a serious deal when you get a callback for a floor squeak. So you calculate this yourself. Go in. Your labor cost. Your company's material. The cost to get everything put up as an original job. Okay, and then try to do some estimates. What it would cost to demo what you just did. What it would cost on labor and material to go back out there, and then what the cost might be where you would have lost an opportunity to have another new build. This is significant. That's why we're having our New Year's resolution: no more callbacks. We're going to prevent floor squeaks. But one thing this kind of leads us into, floor squeaks. How do they happen, right? Floor squeaks. Often people think it's the wood, right? And there is a portion of the wood plays a factor. The fasteners also play a factor. And Samuel wrote this article, "Why Does Wood Warp?" Which we'll get into here in a second, which kind of explains how wood plays a factor in this. But all of this is going to lead up to what we had discussed at the very beginning. Uh, what we said, someone made a very good remark on having a quality polyurethane subfloor adhesive. That could prevent all of this. But first, let's get into one of the ways that floor squeaks can happen, or one of the factors in that. Why does wood warp? Okay, so why does wood warp, Samuel?
Yeah. So this article, like it says there, this was published on our website, which I recommend to everybody that wants to learn about our products, or um, you know has questions that need to be answered about adhesives or foam sealants. And so I published it there. This article I wrote in 2022, I think, but it was a kind of a research project for me, trying to figure out, why does wood really warp? Like, what causes those changes? So, James, if you could go to the next one.
Oh yeah.
So, start with two. These are two important factors to keep in mind. Again, I recommend people go to this article. All my sources are listed there. Whenever I publish research, I cite all my sources and all that. So, I recommend to go there. But and so some of these little factors that I include here are from uh, you know peer-reviewed sources that I list there. So 92% of homes are wood framed. This is in America, of course, and that was a couple years ago. I think it might be 94% now. It's a lot, and research shows that almost every piece of structural lumber has measurable warp. And so these are two things to keep in mind, kind of as we're going through these next few slides.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so the cause, and I tried to boil it down here for the slide. I go into much more detail, in the article, but I try to boil it down to bullet points here. So basically, wood either loses moisture or gains moisture as it once it goes up in the house. It either loses moisture or gains moisture, and that causes either shrinkage or swelling, and both of those result in warp.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next thing I included here is pictures of a couple of different types. There's basically there's more, but the four main types of warp that you see with structural lumber are twists, cup, crook, or bow. And you can see, like the bow, you can see I use that as the cover photo for this article. That appears to be some sort of like untreated deck or something. The crook, you can see that looks like lumber that was left out. Obviously, if it gets left out, rain falls on it, and that causes warping.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And Samuel, so how does this warping, is this wood warping? Is that what's causing the squeak?
no, it's not. So go to the next
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, so when the joist or subfloor begin to warp, it results in an up and down movement of the nails, which causes that squeak sound that we hear whenever we're walking across the floor. And so when your customers move into their new built house, a few months down the road, when those squeaks start to show up, that's what they're hearing is the movement of the fasteners in the wood.
So they hear the wood scraping up against the fasteners or
Yep.
the fasteners moving up and down out of the joist or I-beam. That's
Yep.
what they're hearing. Okay. So at that point, they're hearing a failed system. The fastening has failed to keep the wood from moving.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So I included a quote here. This is a quote in the article, but there are a few problems that will destroy a customer's confidence in the newly installed floor faster than an annoying squeak. When they hear the dreaded sound rising up from the floor, they know something is not right and they begin to point fingers. Often the blame falls on the flooring retailer or whoever sold them the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows, as I mean, of all parts of your house, you probably consider the floor to be the most stable, right? And
Definitely.
the customers walking across the floor and they're like, man, not even the floor is stable in this house, and that's how they're feeling. And so you can see why the callbacks happen, why the lost business happens, but ultimately this is the culprit. This scraping of the fasteners and the wood warping, and it's all things that could be prevented at the end of the day.
Right. And to the customer's point, Samuel, this is a house that they have their family in, their
Yep.
children, maybe their grandparents, their parents. And so, they want to make sure that it's safe for their family. And as the average customer is not going to know what the floor squeak means, they just know it's a problem. And so, I could see how this could be very alarming very quickly, especially to the average consumer.
Yep.
So next, we're going to talk a little bit about floor squeak, the causes, the solutions, and prevention. And this is going to come from APA, which APA, if you don't know who they are, please go on their website. They're huge. They're all over any kind of wood you would purchase from lumber yards or Home Depot and Lowe's. They're an engineered wood association, and they have all sorts of articles that can help out on different things, knowing what lumber to pick, how to pick the right lumber, and things like this. But one of the articles that they kind of published that is very unique for this talk, our resolution of no more floor squeaks, no more callbacks on floor squeaks, is what we're going to talk about. And that is, this article is talking about, how to construct a solid squeak-free floor system. In here, they specify some of the different things to look for, okay? So one of the very first ones is they cite several sources as a cause of the floor squeaks, which we had kind of just went through. Wet lumber, When it dries out, it's going to warp, it's going to crook, it's going to cup, it's going to do all sorts of goofy things, twist, whatever. And another cause of the floor squeak that APA mentions is improper glued floor construction practice. They did not adhere or fasten the subfloor panel to the joist or the I-beam properly. And so in their construct a squeak-free floor system paper, in this article, they recommend using an APA approved adhesive. Now, what they're talking about here is a test, specifically the APA AFG 01 test. And this is a test that they perform to see how strong the adhesive is for shear strength, for tensile strength, compression strength, to understand if it's going to adhere that subfloor panel to the joist or I-beam properly and secure that bond between the subfloor and I-joist, I-beam properly. That way it will prevent and it will have a squeak-free floor system. So one thing to note is they also mentioned an ASTM test, ASTM D3498. This ASTM test is very similar to the APA AFG01 test. And both of these are really a combination of how to prevent the floor squeak from happening in the first place by just constructing a solid wood flooring system. Now, the nice part is, if you remember at the very beginning, we mentioned a high quality polyurethane subfloor adhesive is almost what's required at this point. It's almost needed so badly to prevent floor squeaks from happening. And now we have the answer. We have a test that needs to be done on these high quality polyurethane subfloor adhesives. And Tytan Professional's subfloor adhesive conforms to both of these tests, both the APA AFG01 and the ASTM D3498. Tytan Professional, Salina, USA, our product has been tested and conforms to both of these tests. And so this is something that's really going to help benefit in the future. This is going to be one way, utilizing the Tytan Professional subfloor adhesive product, you can stop callbacks from happening. This could answer the New Year's resolution. So you too can prevent floor squeaks. Okay. And one of the things just to talk about, what is our Tytan subfloor adhesive? Well, it's a polyurethane foam adhesive. Okay, so it shoots out of a gun applicator like you see here at the bottom right of your screen. That gun applicator has a long barrel, so you can stand while you're applying our product. It goes on top of the joist or I-beam. And one of our cans replaces approximately 10 28-ounce caulk adhesive tubes. 10. Almost a whole case of 28-ounce caulk adhesive tubes this one can replace. That's 500 linear feet of product in one 29-ounce can. So the unique thing about a polyurethane subfloor adhesive versus the traditional caulk adhesive is a traditional caulk adhesive, when it's applied, it's gunned out. So you have to have Popeye arms to do it. And typically the guys that are doing it every day, they have those Popeye arms to do it. But you have to gun it out, so there's strain on your hands. The caulk guns are short, so you don't have a long barrel option. So you're on your knees and bending over, so you have strain on your back and on your knees. And the caulk adhesive, when it's squished, it stays squished for the rest of its life. And the problem with that is wood doesn't stay perfectly flat for its entirety of its life. And it doesn't stay flat whenever you're walking on it. And typically, whenever you're framing a house and putting on the second floor or the first floor over top of a basement, You're laying down the caulk adhesive. You're putting a panel on. You're walking on that panel to fasten it with some nails. And then you're getting ready for the next one. The problem is every time you step on that panel and you move, you shift in between those joists on and putting pressure in different parts of that panel, you're pressing down that adhesive, and as soon as you go to another spot, you're releasing that adhesive, the pressure of that panel. Now that panel's popped up and is no longer touching the adhesive or the joist or I-beam. So that's a disadvantage to traditional, is it can immediately break. Its bond can immediately break. Now the advantage to a polyurethane foam adhesive like the Tytan Subfloor adhesive is that when it's applied, it comes out as a foam, it collapses to a gel so that whenever you put the panel on top and you fasten over the next 48 hours, it's actually going to expand. So any imperfections of that wood between the joist or the I-beam and the subfloor panel, they're going to get filled. What does that do and why does that matter? Well, when you fill the voids or the gaps between the subfloor panel and that joist or I-beam, you've now created a bond that's seamless throughout the entire span of that joist or I-beam. And how that plays an effect is huge because now you don't have any movement in that subfloor panel. You've eliminated any movement in that subfloor panel, and when you eliminate movement in the subfloor panel, you prevent floor squeaks from happening. The fasteners are prevented from coming loose. And at that point, you've prevented floor squeaks, you've prevented callbacks. So our Tytan subfloor adhesive, unlike a caulk adhesive, which when it's squished, they squish, our subfloor adhesive, the polyurethane subfloor adhesive, when it's applied, it turns to a gel. Over the next 48 hours, it expands. It fully cures. When it's fully cured, it does not allow the compression of somebody's weight or furniture it doesn't allow the subfloor panel to move. And that is how you prevent floor squeaks from happening. So we're going to go through some frequently asked questions. And one of the first ones, how much subfloor adhesive do I need? Samuel, do you want to kind of take a crack at this? We just went over it yesterday, if I remember right.
Yeah, this is an interesting question that we get sometimes. Common question for any of our adhesives, really. But this one for subfloor, we're going to recommend that you use a 1/2-inch bead of subfloor of glue on the joist or I-beam, and you can get about 500 linear feet. Assuming you're following the technical data sheet, application instructions, and all that. About 500 linear feet of yield of adhesive at that 1/2-inch bead size. And when we say bead, we're just talking about the line of adhesive that you're leaving on the joist or I-beam. And so that equates to about 15 or so 8x4 subfloor panels. So that's about how much. Yeah.
That's awesome. So if someone knows how many subfloor panels they're going to need for a job site, they can divide that by 15. Is that right, Samuel?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that'll tell you about how many cans you need for the job.
All right. And that's assuming, like you said, all technical data aspect is followed and the 1/2-inch bead there.
Yeah, that you're storing the product correctly, that you're using it correctly with the Tytan applicator and all the instructions there.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And our next question is, this is a very common one. Can we put the Tytan subfloor adhesive product on an existing squeaky floor? And I'll go ahead and get into this one because we actually started a video on this. And ultimately, the answer is, if the floor is already squeaking, that means your system's already failed. And if the system's already failed, the fastener's already come loose, Um, it's
Yep.
not a good practice to go in and try to squeeze from taking off the, let's say let's just give a hypothetical, say it's the first floor that's squeaking, and the basement underneath has access, it's not been drywalled up on the ceiling, so you have access, you can see the I beams and you can see the subfloor. It would not be good practice to try to fit a an adhesive, especially our adhesive. It would not be a good practice to try to fit that between the I beam and the subfloor panel. And the reason for that is you don't know what part of that subfloor panel is causing the squeak, or if the
Yep.
fastener is completely loose. You don't have a full understanding of what has failed here. And so it's really, to answer this question, can you put the our subfloor adhesive on an existing floor squeak? The answer is no. You really need to demo that area to get a full understanding of where the squeak is coming from, what's causing it, right? Is the panel the movement? Is the beam? Do you have an even more serious problem? Is there a structural part where the I beam or the joist is moving? This is something you will need to dig into on part of your demo to get a better understanding. And then at that point, once you find out this problem, and you've kind of honed in on what's causing the floor squeak and where it's at, that's when you would remove the subfloor panel. If it's only one, you remove that subfloor panel. You'd lay down the adhesive, and then you'd go in and you'd fasten down the subfloor panel in new spots. You wouldn't want to put it in the same holes because that could cause potential new floor squeaks. You want to put new fastening in and new spots where you're fastening, and making sure that you have that strong bond. So the answer is no. We would not recommend putting our product in an existing floor squeak. It'd be best to demo and start from like it's a new project. Now the next one, how does our subfloor adhesive work? I kind of went through that, and I'll just kind of recap. Our subfloor adhesive works by expanding instead of shrinking. So the traditional caulk adhesive will shrink, or when it's smushed, it stays smushed. Our polyurethane foam adhesive, it turns into a gel when it's applied on top of that joist or on top of that I-beam. Over the next 48 hours, it's absorbing humidity, it's absorbing H2O and releasing CO2, which causes it to bubble up. And while it's bubbling up, it's actually forming up. So that way, while it's curing and it's bonding this subfloor panel to the I-beam and joist, it's creating a positive pressure where those gaps and voids are. And that positive pressure is what's going to keep your subfloor panel from bouncing up and down and making your fasteners loose. And that kind of answers our second question: what causes, or I mean, our last question here: what causes the squeak? Well, the squeak is happening because the subfloor panel is bouncing up and down, or shifting left and right, or the joist or the I-beam is now moved, or the fastener has come loose and it's not completely fastened inside that joist or I-beam underneath. And so what's causing the floor squeak is that rubbing of that fastener on the wood, either the joist or the subfloor. And all that could be prevented with a high quality polyurethane subfloor adhesive like Tytan Professionals. And we get into that. You should check out our YouTube videos we have on our YouTube channel. We get in and we answer these detailed questions. And we always ask, please like and comment on our videos so we know what other questions you might have in the field, and how we can better suit, some common things that you might see in the field that we don't see every day. And Samuel, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No. I like you said, I would encourage people to go to our YouTube channel to get more information. We go to job sites and film at real new builds. I mean, it's pretty interesting stuff, I would say.
Yeah,
But yeah, go ahead and go to the next slide. Everybody that attended today will receive a. I'll send you an email that will have a registration form for the Subfloor Adhesive Trial Pack that will include a Subfloor adhesive can, our standard 29 ounce Subfloor adhesive can with a foam cleaner can and one of our eco guns, so that you can try it out, and we'll ship it to you, and you can try it out. Then you can let us know how it worked for you.
awesome, awesome, and that is a great deal. Again, one can replaces approximately 10 28-ounce caulk adhesive tubes, 500 linear feet of product. So this will be really nice to help you in your New Year's resolution and in our New Year's resolution, preventing floor squeaks and no more callbacks on floor squeaks. So thank you again for joining us and taking the time out of your day to walk through this nice first webinar that we have to kick off the new year and new Salina. And we hope that we see you at our next webinar.
Yep. See y'all next time.
Thank you.